Okay. So first and foremost, hello, Grow Givers. JuJuan Buford here, recording out of Detroit Metro. Want to thank you for taking time to listen in at the Grow Givers Project. You know what we do here? We believe entrepreneurship is empowerment, and it's one of the most effective ways to help families get on the right side of the fence and be able to plan accordingly and secure their financial future. Right. Today, things are a little bit hectic. The average household or the average cost of a home is 400K. The average income is 80K. The math ain't mathing.
Mm-hmm.
So here we believe that, whether it's real estate, that's your jam, great. If it's investing in the market and that's your jam, fantastic. If you are interested in starting up a business, or quite frankly, if you have your thinking cap on starting a business, we want to give you the soul food and motivation, but also equip you with the tools and frameworks to be successful in that space. And I am excited here to have Quincy with us today. Randomly met this gentleman at a 1 million cups event out here in Ferndale. But I was very much impressed with your background and what you bring to the table and the perspective that you have when it comes to the topic of digital marketing and how to navigate this new world that is going to, whether you like it or not, require you to become familiar with AI
Yes.
and make sure that you put yourself in a position to be competitive in the marketplace. So, without further ado, Quincy, if you don't mind, share with the audience, what's the background? Why do you do what you do? What are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, so I appreciate the introduction. My name is Quincy Landingham. Everybody pretty much calls me Q.
Okay.
Really interesting background for me. So I started my professional career in sales. So high level sales, enterprise sales, med device sales, and always kind of had that sales bone and sales mindset in my body. But as I went through my career, I wanted to get more technical. So during the pandemic, found myself really diving into cybersecurity, specifically third party risk management, attack surface management, and understanding just how cybersecurity is the underpinnings from really every modern business, whether you're big, small, anything in between. And then once AI started becoming much more of a useful tool, I started just building things. And so I've been able to transition my career into a situation where I focus on building secure enterprise grade AI infrastructure while also guiding, advising small, medium, large businesses on how to really embed AI into operating systems and do it securely. So I think honestly, what really excites me about this space and what's excited me about cybersecurity in general is that I'm the type of person that, if I'm not learning and growing, I get bored quickly. And I find that I'm not a good person to just sit and not continue to grow. And once I fell into cybersecurity, I realized this is a space that you can never learn everything. It is consistently changing. You have to always be on your P's and Q's. And it reminded me a lot about when I was playing football and having to audible at the line of scrimmage when I was a running back. And so being able to be in this space and use these new tools has been a fantastic pivot in my career. It's been fun. Very, very
Okay.
fun.
I love it. So the first thing that caught my attention when we conversed was this melding of backgrounds. I very rarely find people who are effective at sales and also handling issues related to AI, cybersecurity, technology, period. Usually it's one or the other. You're a wonk and you're highly effective at what you do and executing, right? Delivering projects, but very rarely do I come across individuals who are able to articulate
Mhm.
and quote, let's just be real, sell the product or service that they're providing. So I was really impressed by that.
Thank you.
But talk to the audience like a third grader,
Yes.
right? Because I know what you mean, but even sometimes I require clarification, right? Because what I'm also hearing is a lot of business owners are implementing these tools into their businesses, and we can get into how they're doing it right or wrong, and how random it is, right? Which is going to cause problems later on down the line for them. But the thing that caught my attention in our conversation is how to do things securely,
Yes.
right? I attended a workshop and somebody, quite frankly, scared the hell out of me. He said, basically, all I need is a couple data points
Hmm.
and it's a wrap, right? You cannot stop me from getting into your system.
Yes.
So, I think he said something like your mother's maiden
Yes.
name. He said an address that you lived at previously. If I have a good image or photo of you, it was like two other things. And I was like, whoa. So basically, it's not a matter of if, quite frankly, for most of us, it's just when.
When.
Yeah. Elaborate a little bit on that. Like, when you're talking to business owners about implementing these tools and incorporating into their businesses and applying them, what's the framework?
Yeah. I think that is a big question, a big question that businesses are trying to think about, and even what I think about for my day job. And so I think the first aspect of the framework is really to start simple. It's starting with what are the specific problems that I'm trying to solve? And I'll use my domain expertise coming from sales. I really started using these AI tools and building things to solve small problems,
Hmm.
right? The framework is not to go out and run out and look at the latest YouTube video and see the most quote unquote technically advanced AI operation, because
Hmm.
oftentimes that person is in a environment that does not need security.
Right.
They're a sole proprietor or they're just tinkering at the edge of whatever. My mindset, and I think the mindset that business owners need to take, are what are the problems that are causing me time? What are the things that I'm doing frequently in a manual sense that can be automated? But most importantly, to that point, how can I use AI and use it responsibly without opening up myself to all the data? Because
Hmm.
still at this point, social engineering, right? Using those things that you just mentioned, mom's maiden name, pictures, that is still the number one way that folks can get into somebody's system. And now with AI, it is so much easier for a malicious actor or a bad actor to do those social engineering attacks at scale. It's one of the reasons why I try to have as small of a digital footprint as possible. It's hard to find me on Instagram. It's
Interesting.
hard to find me on Facebook. I don't have these things because get a couple pictures, it's really easy to social engineer. So I really think when I talk to my business I work at, and when I advise clients, it's very much, let's start small. Let's start with small wins. Let's start with things that can be automated or can be using AI. But let's also think about what is your exposure from a security aspect, and are you doing more than you need to be doing just to do it, or are you doing what is the right fit for your business? So you do not need to be some AI engineering architect to be successful with this. It's small problems, doing them securely, which of course can mean a lot of things, and thinking about the actual operations that are causing time that can be repeated.
So you said a lot
Yes.
just then, okay? Because look, there's a tension that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have,
Yes.
right? You have one group of entrepreneurs who are like, I'm going to reject AI, same way people did in 2000 or really 1990 to 2000, rejected the internet, and as a result, they got washed.
Yes.
On the other hand, you have individuals who are jumping online every opportunity they get. They're sharing every minute detail about their lives, and basically turning their lives into like a commodity to be
Yes.
sold. And then you have business owners like myself. There's this tension, right? I know I need to be available online. I know I need to be able to be found, but it's certain things I don't do. So I don't post pictures about my children. I don't talk too frequently about my comings and goings, not in detail. There's certain parts of my life that I purposely don't share,
Yes.
right? Um, what are the guardrails?
I think what you just described is a perfect example of thinking about your social media and what you post in a risk management discipline.
Mhm.
So let's break this down. I think the guardrails are dependent upon your risk tolerance and the risk of what you show and related to how it relates to your business. So if we think about cybersecurity or risk management from a inherent risk perspective, controls in place, and a residual risk. So the inherent risk of something is just what is just the risk of something happening without any type of mitigating factors in place. So what you just talked about, you're saying I do need to be out there in some capacity for my business. And I would agree with that, right? Because if you're a front-facing business owner, your front porch, you got to find a way to get clients. So your inherent risk is there's just a risk there, but the controls, you're not posting your family. You're not talking about your comings and goings. You're not giving the threat actor or the malicious actor enough to really get into your systems or really to social engineer you. So then your residual risk is necessarily lower. So if you really think about anything you're doing, whether it's building a system, whether it's getting your social media, I really like to think about it from a risk management perspective. What's the risk I'm not out there? What's the risk
Mhm.
I am out there? What controls can I put in place to make sure that my residual risk is not high enough to outweigh the benefits of being out there? So
Mhm.
I think the framework is very dependent upon what your business is, what your risk tolerance is, quite frankly, and the
Hmm.
type of things you need to share to get clients. My mindset is always share the least available
Mm.
that is necessary. Don't be sharing your kids. I know folks love to show the square with their kid going into fifth grade and their teacher's name. That is a gold mine. I would
Hmm.
recommend you don't share that because there
Okay.
are a myriad of ways that a threat actor could use that to create a social engineering situation. So share the least that you can and think about everything in a risk management discipline would be my guidance there.
So the way that lands with me, because I keep hearing this word social engineering.
Yes.
So there are people, when I hear social engineering, I'm thinking there are people out here that will try to duplicate my presence and utilize that persona or avatar they've created to cause havoc in my life and maybe utilize my presence, the fact that I'm known, maybe the fact that I'm trusted to go out here and nefariously get access to other people's information, data, or even compromise my information.
Yes.
Am I hearing that correctly?
That is one perfect example of social engineering, and I'll give you an exact case of how that works in the AI landscape. So that lunch you said that scared you. They're
Hmm.
talking about they need your voice. They might need your some videos and maybe some examples of how you would make an argument.
Hmm.
You give a good person that with AI tools that can make deep fakes. They can do all the things that you just said.
Hmm.
Make a complete deep fake of your persona, do all the nefarious activities and social and use that. Another aspect of social engineering is maybe the flip side of, let's say you're a business, right? Whether you're a sole owner, you have 10, 15, 20 employees. What we say in cybersecurity is that your humans are your weakest firewall. A firewall is
Mm.
designed, of course, to stop intrusion into your network. But the number one way folks still get in is still social engineering in a sense of maybe they take all the information that they glean from your Facebook, they create some urgency and say, Juan, hey, your son or your daughter is in trouble at school. I noticed they're in Mrs. So and so's class. Insurance isn't going through. I need you to send $500 to get them out of the hospital. As a parent, that sense of urgency, you're going to immediately your guards are going to be down. You're going to start to think, I got to get my daughter out of this. So
Hmm.
you're automatically going to be susceptible, and they can glean that just from information on the Facebook, information on Instagram. So yes, your example is a perfect example of social engineering for nefarious ways, and also ways that folks can use information to create that urgency, send malicious links via email. So you're just opening yourself up to many more ways to be attacked the more you share online.
My goodness, man. Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, there are people out there that will literally they can pick up the phone, call you, and utilize his avatar, any information that's out there, whether it's calling you or somebody else,
Oh yes.
right? And I'm thinking my natural gut reaction is interesting because I know this stuff takes place. My natural gut reaction would be to call the school.
Yes, that's the
My
perfect
my
way.
natural gut reaction would be to call a hospital.
Yes.
I'd be like, is this going on?
Yes.
But from what I'm hearing from you, that's not how most people respond.
It is not. That is the perfect reaction. That's what we would coach people to do. That's what we coach our folks to do internally. I get an email from my CEO asking for something crazy. My first instinct and the best control to lower that risk, text him or her directly. Email them. Was this you? Your inclination to call the school. That is the perfect way. But to your point, most people will not react that way. And most people, especially, it's easy to say that when we're having a conversation, but when you're getting that phone call and it feels urgent and you feel that pit in your chest of, oh no,
Hmm.
something's happening to my child. Who knows how you react in that sense, right? And so you're spot on with the way you would want to handle it, but most people will not handle it that way. I see it all the time with folks getting scammed and with very simple information.
Wow. Okay. So earlier today, right? I'm in the middle of automating a new business vertical I'm getting ready to introduce. And so, I'm utilizing a handful of tools, Claude, and it's probably two other, I can't remember right now, Notion.
Mhm.
I got a couple tools in my wheelhouse that I'm utilizing for this process. And in preparation for discussion with you, I was thinking with every single script I was creating or everything I was sharing to get these automations set up, I was like, I have no idea whether or not I'm doing this in a secure way. It's not like a lot of these tools are going to prompt you and say, hey, you may want to consider doing this, not sharing this key, where do you store this information? it really wasn't giving me suggestions about that. I was just saying, okay, this is how you do it. Let's just go.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So for those novices, right, like myself, what do you do? Like, I don't even know what security looks like, right? Beyond setting up two-factor
Hmm.
authentication. What does that look like when you're employing ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, whatever your jam is, and you're utilizing Zapier and you're utilizing maybe Cloud Console to create an agent? What are the things that business owners who are like running 100 miles an hour into this space, what would you encourage them to do to protect themselves?
That is a really good question, and there's I think a lot of answers if I think about it. Small baby steps.
Mhm.
Wow. That's a big question because there's just so many things that business owners could do. And I'm just going to talk about some experience I've had in building our system, and hopefully some of that information translates. But I think the first thing that one would want to do before they really dive fast in building with these tools is to take a step back first and think about high level. First off, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish
Mhm.
in a various operation? That's the first step. Second step, if we think about this, what is the least amount of information that I can share with these tools to get the job done?
Mhm.
And as I think about the permissions, that is a major aspect. And when I say permissions, I mean, as you're talking about, right? One could easily go run a million miles an hour and give these agents carte blanche permissions to do everything and anything on their desktop and in their environment. From my mindset, and thinking as a cybersecurity professional, the aspect of least privileged access, which is the concept of give your agents or give your people or give whatever is touching your environment the least amount of privileges necessary to accomplish the goal. So if you're thinking about your agent setup, it's thinking about if my goal is X, what are the least amount of permissions I have to give said agent to accomplish Y? Because that again goes back to that risk management discipline, using your inherent risk, putting controls in, and then lowering that residual risk. I would also encourage folks before they were to start doing anything, map your data.
Mhm.
Map your data. And that is twofold because, first off, these AI tools, these tools you're using are only as good as the data they're being fed into. And
Mhm.
if you're hooking up your tools with data that's in disparate places, that's unstructured, and that is not good data, it's gonna make it more difficult to start, and you oftentimes will make security shortcuts to get to that data.
I like it.
So I would
Okay.
say map that data scheme out because then at that point you can have a much better opportunity to understand
Mhm.
what are my integration points, what type of security I need to add,
Mhm.
and don't be afraid to reach out to somebody who might know security a little bit better.
So, mapping your data.
Yes.
Um, Academically, I know what you're talking about,
Yes.
but what does that look like in application?
Yeah, an application, honestly, it looks like finding out where are all of your important data sources and where do they need to get to so that you can use the data appropriately. So I'll give you an example from my business. We sell a SIM, security incident and event management. Basically, it's a log aggregator that takes data from networks and it puts it in an easy to analyze place for cybersecurity professionals. Internally, we were trying to build out a really sophisticated cloud setup,
Mm.
and as I was building this, I realized that some of our data lived in Salesforce, some of it lived in another CRM, some of it lived in
Mm.
Notion, some of it lived in Gong. And so you really have to think about if I need all this data to work properly and to talk to each other, how do I get it to one place? How do I get them to talk? And how do I do it securely?
Mm.
How do I make sure that there is human in the loop? So humans reviewing output that this AI produces as another aspect of security. So that data mapping project made it so much easier for us to think about at a high level how we would connect all of our data points and how we would do it securely. And from my perspective, how I would build securely and build it in an easy to use manner for my end users who are my salespeople, my marketers, my non-technical people. So it's
Mhm.
very much that data mapping project was foundational to how this infrastructure started to get built.
So, for a person listening that may not be familiar with the jargon, right? The way that lands with me is I have Drive, I have Notion,
Hmm.
HubSpot,
Yes.
right? MailChimp. So when you say mapping data, these tools that you are utilizing to track information about your financials, about your clients, notes that are being taken, videos that are being created, documents that are being created, where are these spaces where that information is being saved or stored,
Yes,
right? And it's important to think critically about the tools you're utilizing to store this information or data,
it is.
right?
It's very important for a multitude of manners, and most importantly, if we're thinking about this security trend, the more tools you have, the more you're exposed to a potential security
Yes.
situation. There's that concept of third and fourth party risk. And so that third and fourth party risk is, what is the risk of your downstream providers and how they are maintaining their security, which opens you up as the end user to more
Mm-hmm.
risk depending upon what your providers are doing. And so even so, a data mapping exercise often, at least it did for us, made us realize we have some redundant places where we have data. We can just get rid of this, consolidate. It'll make it easier for our integrations, more human in the loop revisions, and it'll be one less third or fourth party risk we have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very important to map that data and understand where you're storing
Mm-hmm.
those pieces of data and how you're going to connect accordingly.
Okay. So now that we've probably sufficiently frightened people, there's a flip side to this
Yes.
conversation I wanted to have. So I attended, I think it was Alicia Little. I can't remember the gentleman's name. It's terrible. Charged my head and not my heart. I think it's Robert Courtney. They had an event with DSDT a handful of weeks ago in Detroit Metro, and you had the pomp and circumstances and excitement and enthusiasm about AI, and she was sharing all the different tools that are available and applications. Something shocked me at one point during this event. A question was asked from the stage, how many of you, and they asked it three or four different ways, and the response varied, but the one question that stuck with me was, how often are you all utilizing AI to grow your business, right? Where it's uh, like daily usage, right? Um, and I feel like it was like maybe 150, maybe 200 people in the room. Could have been more. But just looking around, I feel like, okay, I'm staring at about 150 to 200 people packed in this space. And man, when they asked that question and asked business owners to raise their hand, I was shocked by the paucity of people who are utilizing these tools on a daily basis to grow their business. I was shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw from my purview, maybe about 10 people,
Mm-hmm.
15 people at the most raised their hand.
Yep.
And I said to myself, man, you all don't like I say it was deja vu. I remember early on in my career as an investment advisor in the early 2000s, and I remember having conversations with business owners on a regular basis saying, look, if you don't get on this internet, if you don't start marketing online, you're going to get washed. It's like having a incredible business without an awning, right? It can be the best service and products on the planet Earth. You can be offering incredible value, helping so many people. But if people can't find you, you're going to be in trouble, right? And I feel like the same thing is happening now, right? And I was just curious to know your, because I have a follow up question to this, but I was thinking to myself, okay, was it because I was in a space where maybe just that demographic that was there that day didn't utilize AI frequently, or is this something that's still widespread? And I'd be interested in your perspective because you're concerned about obviously security and protecting yourself. But the need to use AI, is this an exaggeration? 'Cause I don't believe it is. I firmly believe small business owners need AI even more so than enterprises do.
I agree with all your points. And I'll say this: I mean, from my perspective, the .com uh, comparison is spot on. When
Mm,
I think about it, I'm 37, right? So I remember the .com boom
mm,
and watching these companies, but I wasn't part of that conversation of, if you don't get behind this, you're going to get left behind. My perspective is very much of that mindset of, a lot of companies came out of the .com boom, some
mhm,
failed, but a lot of them are enduring and they're still here. And I think that same concept applies to AI. But I think your situation where you notice that a paucity of people were using it is actually not uncommon.
mm,
I work in a tech company, a very sophisticated tech company, and we still have had and sometimes still have a lot of resistance to using our tools.
Mhm.
And a lot of my role at this company became making these tools seem a lot less intimidating
Mhm.
and getting folks to really understand how useful they are, because I'm of the mindset of I don't create the system, I don't build this, I mean the system that we're living in, but these AI tools are here to stay. And
Mhm.
it's either learn how to use them or get left behind. And I
Mhm.
think as a small business owner, it is a crucial demographic to learn how to use these, because what it can do is absolutely force multiply the amount of things and amount of people you're able to reach at a low cost relative to the amount of value that it can provide. And so, one of the things that really has to happen, and one of the things that I do on a day to day basis, is really talking to my end users and saying, hey, I've built all this infrastructure. I've really synthesized this and made this easy for you to use. Let's think about real business cases, real revenue generating opportunities from my go to market team where you can enable this, where you can use this, whether it's call prep, whether it's discovery, whether it's automated marketing and lead generation, whether it's, I've built agents that are running deep competitive analysis, which is enabling us to target our ICP better. So using these tools is imperative, and understanding that yes, they can be intimidating, but if you're willing to tinker and play and fall down and practice with these things, the
Mhm.
the benefits are endless. And I fully agree with you that if you want to really be in this new paradigm and continue to grow, using these tools in a proper manner is imperative. But I would say that the thing that I caution people to chase to not do, something I don't do, is you don't need to go chase and learn about every single new frontier model change.
Mhm.
You don't need to understand the intricacies of why Opus is different than Fable is different than Sonnet. Like those things that are those purple squirrels that all the cool YouTube videos talk about that make this AI stuff seem way more intimidating than it
Mhm.
is not the way.
Mhm.
My mindset is I think about AI from a enterprise perspective, from an SMB and medium sized perspective, and simply what can these tools do to solve problems using my specific domain knowledge, or if I was talking to a business owner, their specific domain knowledge. And if you can break it down to that small, really small point, I think it can allow you to really reframe how you think about AI and become less intimidated to start solving small problems and building from there. I'm completely self taught with this. I
Mhm.
saw that this is where the market was going, and I figured it is imperative that I learn these tools because I don't want to get left behind.
Mhm.
And so it's been about a year since I've been building, and it's been an amazing experience turning myself from a technology person who knows the ins and outs of it, but to I feel like a true technologist now because I have these tools in my hands.
So, man, so many different directions I can go with that. Um, Part of the conversation I had with this collective of business owners at a luncheon we facilitated was I just shared, like, I was very transparent with them. And I had someone offer a different opinion. So I'm gonna be curious to know where
Hmm.
you fall into this. So I shared with the group that, my biggest concern about AI and how it poses a threat to me is for years I was a smart guy. I was the plug, right? If you wanted to understand something, I was the one that's going to deliver that information to you in perspective, right? And I'm acutely aware, at least I firmly believe, and you can tell me differently because I'm always open to hearing more. I just firmly believe 70% of the work that I've been doing over the last 5 to 10 years is going to be obsoleted by AI. Because the bottom line is you don't need to come to me to learn about EBITDA. You don't need to come to me to learn about COGS. You don't need to come to me to learn about how to understand P&E ratios or any of the conversations I might be having on a day-to-day basis with business owners. You don't need me to write a business plan. You don't need me to write a marketing plan. None of that stuff is easily replaceable from these my observations looking at these tools. And so what I shared with individuals was I am switching from that guy that people come to for information, and I am doubling down and I'm being savage about execution.
Yes.
Because what I believe is that the new broom may sweep better, but the old broom knows the corners. And what I mean by that is you can be the most informed, intelligent person in the world, but there's a sequencing to things. And sometimes, despite your intellect, if you do things in the wrong order, you'll still be just treading water. You won't get ahead. And so, where I see my competitive advantage, and I think other entrepreneurs who are in the same boat, is I don't talk about things I don't know about. I don't talk about things that I have not done. If I'm talking about it, I've already done it,
Yes.
right? So I've already failed at several businesses, and thank God I've been very successful at a handful of
Yes.
businesses as well. So I just take that working knowledge and the failures and successes and understanding how to do things in a certain order. And I believe that's the advantage that I can press into the marketplace. Now, I shared that with another professional in your space as
Hmm.
well. And she said, Juan, you're a little bit off. She said, keep in mind with these tools basically, in many respects, your experience is being curated
Hmm.
because they're responding and utilizing the data you give it. So if there's another entrepreneur who isn't as informed as you, is there's another entrepreneur who is not as knowledgeable as you, not as experienced as you, they're having a totally different conversation with their AI than you are. You don't have to worry about people utilizing AI to duplicate this knowledge base that you have, right? And then, of course, my next thought was, all right, but it's not like I can really bet on or bank on or really believe at 100% that these tools are not collecting all of our data and utilizing our collective information to create things. I'm curious to know, where do you fall on that? Because I just don't trust that just because I'm having a conversation with Claude, some of the input is not being shared with other users.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you're both right. I believe a little bit of both of that. And I think from the perspective of your first point, that is exactly how I coach my team and really think about this is that you're exactly right. These AI tools have really can automate and provide information on that blocking and tackling, that 70 to 80% that they have been trained on, that is that knowledge that says, yes, if I type in, help me write a business plan for this market, you're going to get an output that's
Mhm,
probably going to be serviceable.
mhm,
But where we as humans and where we as domain experts lie is that extra 30 to 20%. That's exactly what I tell my team of the AI can produce some really beautiful, really cool looking, completely wrong
mm,
output.
yeah,
But it's up to you as the human who has that domain knowledge in whatever your specific skill set is to review those outputs, have that taste and that discernment and that judgment to say, I've gotten all this output from the AI. Is it actually good? Is
mhm,
it usable? Is this what it should sound like? Is this good for my business? So I firmly believe that that domain knowledge is the key to success in this space and the key to separating yourself in the AI paradigm. From a training perspective, these models are being trained on so much, so much collective data,
mhm,
some of it being what you use. Now, of course, there's depending upon your plans, there's all these different things and stipulations you can sign up to. Are they, using your data to train their models? They say you can opt out, but who
mhm.
knows if you can actually opt out. But
'Cause it's being recorded.
because it's being recorded, yeah, there's
Yeah.
just all those things. But you know, I think her second point, and remind me of that second point was much more around not trusting the outputs and being able to have your domain knowledge review that.
Mhm,
That is absolutely true as well. I mean, there's that concept. There's just a high level cybersecurity concept of um, trust but verify.
mhm,
Every time, it's more, sometimes it could be an authentication concept of zero trust access. Every single time I were to try to log onto a system, instead of assuming that it's always a persistent Quincy session, this system should assume that it's not, act accordingly, and make me authenticate again. Basically,
mhm,
is that zero trust access. I take the same concept to AI. I tell my team zero trust because if somebody were to say, I'm in a regulated space, this output is X. You can't just go to your regulator and say, well, the AI said it was cool. We went with it.
mhm.
Your regulator is still going to say, well, okay, well, you use your AI tool, but you're still ultimately accountable for what the output was. So I think there's room for both. Yes, that domain knowledge is absolutely imperative. It is the key to using these tools appropriately, to not being obsoleted, is to think about what is your specific domain knowledge. That's that 30%.
Mm,
How do I use the AI to get rid of all the blocking and tackling so I can think upstream, think strategically, and use the secret sauce that I have that nobody
mhm,
else can do to guide these AI tools appropriately
mhm.
while also trusting and verifying? That is a great way to think about it in general, and it's really a cybersecurity way to think about it too.
I like it. So here's something I've been thinking about. Um, when I look at what's transpiring in the marketplace, especially among business owners, I feel like labor is becoming less valuable. And because of that, if we have a situation where we're utilizing AI tools to basically eliminate a lot of the labor, the blocking and tackling, right? Um, I have two schools of thought. Number one, as a business owner, I think entrepreneurs should think about not necessarily how much time it takes to execute something, but you should make people pay for the impact. Because ultimately, a smart business owner, that's what you're paying for.
Mhm.
You're paying for the impact,
Yes.
right? But even still, if we have these tools that are increasingly being able to accelerate our impacts, being able to accelerate our capacity to do work, isn't the work going to become less valuable in the future? And create a situation where business owners could potentially be producing way more than we have historically, but earning a lot less as a result of these tools, right? I'm thinking about that as well, right? Obviously, the speaking engagements, I'm not so much concerned about that. But when people ask me to produce analysis for them, or if someone asks me to create some type of booklet or manual or SOP, or if I'm involved in any of those processes, I'm thinking, man, this is not a winning model. This is not a winning business because more and more of these tools are going to be able to duplicate these things. Um, that's one of the
Yeah.
pressure points that I'm thinking about critically now, moving forward in the next 5 to 10 years. On the flip side of it, and you just touched on it, right? You had all these companies who like literally just inundated the marketplace during the dot-com bubble, right? And we have companies that came out, they were the winners, right? I'm looking at AI, and one of the other things that I'm concerned about, and we've already kind of touched on this, but how do you know who the winners are going to be?
Mm,
Because there are people falling in love with certain tools, certain companies, like that's their jam. And it is reasonable to assume that out of all these hundreds of companies and apps that are, we may only have a handful that make it out of the next 8, 10 years.
yeah.
And if your business is 100% predicated upon utilizing a specific tool or collective of instruments, I mean, how do you even adapt and account for that?
Yeah. That's a real risk. I think in a couple say I would say the first point about labor potentially being commoditized or those outputs being commoditized. I think that's a real fear. I think that's a, but again, what my engineering manager at my business, I think I really agree with how he phrased this when
Mm,
thinking about engineering. He said, if your value as an engineer has been historically to just create code,
mm,
that's it. You're going to struggle
mhm,
because Claude Code, Codex, Replit, all these different tools can create basic code. However, it is going to change that engineering discipline, and those who are going to be successful are those who are going to be able to be upstream and say, well, if this code got written, is it good code? Is it secure code? Is this code that is scalable? Is this something we can even push to production and manage? So that strategic aspect, it's going to force, in my opinion, all of us to use our specific knowledge to
mhm,
be different.
mhm,
And I think about myself. I know cybersecurity, I know go to market, and I know AI. That is a specific domain knowledge, a specific combination that is rare.
mhm,
And when I think about the ways I could leverage that, I'm like, I could replicate that. I could probably scale that skill from a build perspective, but that's unique to me.
mhm,
That is my secret sauce. That is my winning formula. Um, when I think about it from the perspective, or remind me again, the second point. This is such a good point there regarding um, What was your second point again?
So, like I said, you had the influx
Yeah.
during
Yes.
the .com,
Yes.
and now it's the same thing. I mean, every
Yes.
time I look up, there's a new tool,
Yeah.
and then of course, one moment ChatGPT is hot, now
Yeah.
Claude is hot, now this tool is hot, now
Yeah.
this tool,
Yeah. Okay. That's yeah.
and some of these companies aren't going to
They're
make it.
not going to make it. That's
Yeah.
okay. That's it. Thank you for the reminder of that. Some of them are not going to make it. How I view these things is, I think, twofold. First off, if I think about it from a framework perspective and how I would like to build and how I would architect, those I think are platform agnostic. It does not matter if you're using Claude or Codex or Notion or whatever you're going to be doing. The basics of making sure your data is clean, thinking about human in the loop architecture, thinking about your inputs and your outputs, and making sure you're solving real business problems and starting small before getting willy nilly,
Mm,
leveraging least privileged access, right? Those do not matter what platform you're using.
mm-hmm.
What I would say, and this is a risk, right? One cannot see the future. I'm kind of putting my bets on developing and thinking about it in the sense of Anthropic is likely going to be around.
Mm,
OpenAI is likely going to be around in some capacity. You know, whether you are a regulated industry, maybe you're open to some of the less secure frontier models that are more open source.
mm-hmm.
My experience is much more in regulated industries, and I think cybersecurity first. And so I would be hesitant to use
Mm-hmm.
those
Mm-hmm.
for the reasons of security and are they still going to be here? But I think in any way, if you're going to start to use these tools, there is an inherent risk of something happening. So your best quote unquote control, in my opinion, is to try to use one of these frontier labs if you can, or
Mm-hmm.
use something that is going to end up hopefully being a YouTube or a Yahoo and not pets.com. And I think about it and I see the flip side in my
Yeah.
role at work. Everybody's trying to sell me an AI tool now. Like, you'd be amazed how many emails I get,
Mm-hmm.
people trying to sell me an AI tool. And I sit on these demos and I'll sit back and I'll say, wow, like, you've raised millions of dollars of capital and this is not that sophisticated of a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could probably go build this, and I have built some of these things myself in a day or a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking some of these are not going to last because there's going to be an inflection point where more and more folks have the capabilities to build these things.
Mm-hmm.
And those I think the ones that are going to quote unquote fail are those who aren't doing something really sophisticated, and they're going to market with the idea of there isn't a lot of folks who can build even at this level now, so our window's now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be more and more builders, I think, and more folks like myself who transition maybe from the business operation side to the technology side and take that mindset of, okay, well, I understand business very well.
Mm-hmm.
I can just use a frontier lab and retrofit a lot of these things, and
Mm-hmm.
we can go from there.
Man, I have a million questions and not enough time, but
I know.
um, two more questions.
Yep.
So I firmly believe, and once again, if I'm wrong, I'm curious to hear your perspective. You hear about Armageddon coming, right? Massive layoffs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I firmly believe it is true. The thing that I'm most concerned about on a macro level is when we switch from agriculture to a manufacturing economy, there was a lag. There was a period of time, right? Uh, 1 or 2 generations had time to catch up, make the adjustment. When we switched from manufacturing to industrial to financial, once again, there was a lag. I mean, you go to school and whatever job you went to school for, it was still there, right? Um, man, I don't see a lag here. Things are moving so fast. I don't think people are going to have time, at least in more developed countries, to make the transition. And my concern is when we talk about, I think at this point, I stopped watching it because I don't like to doom scroll and
Hmm.
get caught up in the negativity. But last time I checked, I mean, we were up to almost 600,000 layoffs in the economy. Now, some of it I believe are just companies making bad decisions and scapegoating AI.
100%.
But I also believe, AI is replacing a lot of this, right? We see these automated factories. We see these automated restaurants. Um, a lot of the entry level occupations and jobs. I mean, it's a wrap for that. I
Yep.
mean, it's gone. So I believe there's going to be a lot of rapid displacement. And my biggest concern isn't so much the growth of AI because that's how human beings have always evolved. We create technology and that advances us, and we're able to do some incredible things because of that. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, the majority of people I know, even those who are I count as intelligent, smart, hardworking individuals, they're not going to be able to make the pivot. Now, there are some people saying this is exaggerated. We have 10 years, 20 years for the pivot to transpire. I don't believe that. I believe that the displacement is going to be fast, it's going to be heavy, and it's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. When you when you hear those type of conversations, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a few things. First off, I'm thinking the first point of a lot of businesses making bad decisions and overhiring are scapegoating AI and
Hmm.
laying off folks that they just got bloated and they shouldn't have hired so many people in the first place. And they're trying to blame the AI on poor business decisions from the
Hmm.
top. So I believe that. But I also do believe that there is the potential. I'm having a hard time predicting that far in the future, but I do believe that there's a strong potential for a lot of displacement. And
Hmm.
because these tools are moving so fast, I mean,
Hmm.
I see it every day with what I build, and I'm just thinking, I got to stay at the game so I don't get replaced. I mean, I could automate so many things, and I have to just continue to, I just have to make myself useful in some way, shape, or form. And so I think about it a lot being Detroiters of like the auto industry and automation and how that changed how cars got built and how folks had to upskill, and I think if I think about it, I guess if we could think really high level, I know that California is putting some protections in for potential worker displacement. I have not looked into the details of that, but I think there is the potential for
Hmm.
that, because these tools can do so many things, and it really is forcing you to be a completely different type of worker. I
Hmm.
think if you want to be successful in this paradigm, when I'm interviewing people for the company I work for, I'm thinking about completely different questions now. I'm thinking about completely different types of people that I'm seeing can win. While I think there's going to be a lot of displacement, I would think a couple things. First off, I would caution businesses or folks from just displacing all the things because back to our point, domain knowledge is important.
Hmm.
Domain knowledge is even more important with these tools. And if you just say, I'm going to cut everybody and let AI do all the things,
Hmm.
you're going to set yourself up to get brilliantly beautiful outputs that are complete nonsense because there's going to be nobody there to check the AI who knows what's happening.
Hmm.
So I I could also, while I could see a displacement, I could also see down the road a straight boomerang effect where businesses realize, oh no, we cut way too many people. We got machines running the shop who literally are talking. There's agents talking to agents with no
Hmm.
context, nobody to look at the outputs and make sure they're
Hmm.
correct. And now you have a different problem. So
Hmm.
I think there really needs to be some considerations and some looking in the mirror of if you are thinking about displacing people, quote unquote, it's like, am I just getting rid of people to because the AI hype or because I got to invest or because maybe I hired too many people and I can just scapegoat AI and the board will let me get away with it.
Hmm.
But really think about what's your business going to look like. And I would encourage people, individuals, to find a way to learn how to use these in your space. If you're working in real estate, learn how to use these in real estate. If you're working in sales, learn how to use these tools in sales. If you're whatever your skill, and you look at yourself and say, I'm really good at X, learn how to use AI to enhance that. That is
Hmm.
my advice on the best way to try to mitigate against a likelihood
Hmm.
of more losses. Be
Okay.
my thoughts.
Okay. Man, there's a couple sidebar comments we can have about that. But as we start to wrap up here, a question that we frequently ask our guests, um, what books, thought leaders, podcasts, what are you consuming to stay sharp and to put yourself in a situation where you can be an elite entrepreneur, right? What are the things you're consuming right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm consuming. Okay, well, I'll get really nerdy here. I There's a email list called TLDR, and they send out a daily AI briefing, which talks about everything that's happening in the AI world.
TLDR.
TLDR. Too long didn't read, a daily AI briefing. But honestly, what I've built for myself is an AI agent that helps me in this sense. And what I've coded it to do is look out in every day and look for all the things that are happening in the news in the AI space, but specifically serve me up information that relates to AI in an enterprise level, AI for entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
AI for small to medium sized businesses, and how these tools are specifically being used in that domain. So I've kind of curated myself a list that sometimes it'll be a Substack from some person. So I don't have a specific, I guess, person. I know there's a lot of amazing voices out there on
Hmm.
Substack and YouTube and all the things, but I like to see a mix of information being pulled from the agent that I built. So that
Hmm.
I think is a good example of, hey, a project. If I want to learn more about how to be an entrepreneur in my given space, one could easily build themselves an agent that scans the internet, looks for news in their domain,
Hmm.
stirs them up 5 to 10 articles per day,
Hmm.
even less, whatever they can comfortably consume without being overwhelmed,
Hmm.
and they go from there. It's a practical use of AI. It's a good way to start getting your feet wet, and it's a good way to understand, oh, I can use these tools. So I built myself my own little, basically RSS feed that serves me up Substacks and YouTube videos.
Hmm.
What I say I stay away from are the super hypey, I can do the craziest new thing with Claude, because I
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
not my thing, because like I said, that's secure. I'm not going that fast. I'm thinking I'd rather be 5 steps behind doing it right than chase the latest model doing some crazy nonsense.
Interesting.
I'm okay. Like
Yeah.
I don't I don't even use the newest models all the time at my job. I
Hmm.
use Sonnet a lot. It gets the job done. It's cost effective. I'm not using Opus for everything.
Hmm.
And I would say, especially if you're thinking about AI, at least from my perspective, reading, thought leadership, great, especially as you're getting started, but get your hands dirty and just tinker.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about how to use AI for your business, that's the way to really start. Tinker, low stakes,
Hmm.
just get comfortable. It's like anything. It's like this is a discipline that just takes time and practice.
Hmm.
And I'll say this: those of us who are liberal arts majors like myself, I'm finding it very useful in this space to think about, because it allows you to look back to that mindset of being a good writer, looking at
Hmm.
complex problems and breaking them down to a thesis statement and a hypothesis and how you support that. Half of using AI correctly is really that.
Yeah.
What's your problem? What's your thesis? How you're going to get to the end goal? Use your tools. So if you're a liberal arts major, tap back into that mindset. Maybe if you were back in college writing papers all the time,
Yeah.
because it's very, very helpful. I was a poli sci major, and I find that that has been really integral in this space.
Oh man, that is another interesting conversation to have because for a moment, colleges and universities in particular, they eschewed AI. They were like, we don't want you using it. It was kind of like dating myself, right? When calculators were
Mm-hmm.
introduced. And I remember people were on some, we don't want students to be able to use calculators because they're not going to be able to use math. Well, we know what transpired
Right.
there. It's going to be really interesting to see what the educational environment looks like because I firmly believe universities and just academic spaces, period, have to accept the fact that people are going to utilize AI to produce work. Now, how do you quote unquote grade that work,
Right.
right? How do you judge the intellectual tenacity and how applicable this information is being produced is going to be? It's going to be interesting.
It's a long conversation, and I know I
Yeah,
wish we could go. I got to run soon
I
too,
know.
but I'll say leave you with that. I think that it's imperative that universities, high schools, whatever our educational system prepares folks to know that they're going to use these tools in their given occupation. But I firmly believe that I am better with these tools because in college still had to write papers and didn't have any of these AI. I had to go to the library and read the things
Mhm.
and do these things manually. So I take that discipline and that thought process to
Yep.
the tools. And so I would love to get my mother's opinion, who was a 30-year special ed teacher in Berkeley schools, her thoughts, 'cause I'm sure she'd have some great thoughts from a true educator's perspective. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you still gotta like train your muscle to learn.
Yeah.
Then you could use the AI. I don't think it's useful to teach folks to just put everything on the AI, because then you're just trusting. You got to be able to like know your stuff.
Yeah, and there's no authenticity there
There's no
whatsoever.
authenticity.
Okay. So for individuals who want to get in contact with you, they want to reach out, they want to be able to glean the wisdom and information you have, or perhaps even utilize your um, services to help them build their business. How do people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so check out brickstreetai.com, And then you can reach me at q@brickstreetai.com via email. So I offer consultancies, advisory services, and really just helping small to medium sized businesses understand how to do these things at scale, how to leverage and build these things securely, really just taking all the expertise I've gained from being in that enterprise space. So definitely hit me up if you're interested in discussing that and need help. I'm here in Metro Detroit, but of course I'm a remote worker, so I can talk
There
to
it
anybody
is.
from anywhere. But especially if you're here locally, always down to chat. And one of the main reasons I decided to come home from Atlanta, honestly, last year was because I really wanted to think about entrepreneurship and philanthropy, and I wanted to do it here in Metro Detroit, where I'm born and raised. And so, really interested and open to discussing this with any and all folks who are local to who want some guidance.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you for the chat.